Welcome to the show, IB Nation Sports Talk. We're up and rolling as always, along with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. How are you tonight, Vince?
It's been a heck of a night. I'm actually not. It feels good to just settle in and talk some Notre Dame football because life was hitting me square across the jaw for a few hours, and I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah, I can just about imagine. We were just recounting all the fun you just had. I've got good news though, as you know, and it starts with this. That's a thing of the past. The microphone that caused me so much problems the other night. I've got a new microphone, so hopefully everyone's hearing it okay, sounding okay,
funny.
looking okay, everything else. It won't be blocking half of my head anymore.
I know.
And hopefully this thing works full time. We'll see. That one works sometimes, but
we're looking for full-time working here.
Just
no part-timers.
Too much here recently. I wanted to also, though, Vince, before we get started tonight, I've been a little bit worried about you lately.
Uh-oh.
Because, I'm starting to wonder if you're like 15 plus years working in public education maybe has jaded you because see, I might be onto something.
You might be.
You've always been, the cockeyed optimist, looking at, through rose-colored glasses and all that. But I've noticed more and more lately, you're taking on the get off my lawn, grumpy old man kind of thing. I've noticed that coming out in you more on this show specifically. Uh-oh. And God knows I can get a little cantankerous myself. I'm not saying I'm above that, but I'm just, sports are kind of supposed to be our safe space. So
I know,
I just need to know, are you okay? Do we need an intervention to kind of knock some of this crankiness out of you or what's going on?
It's tough. I'll be honest with you. This high school baseball is supposed to kick off Monday, right? And so that's part of it, is that I'm not coaching anymore. So I don't have the stresses, but I also don't have the excitement of the upcoming season to look forward to. I've got an injured kid, so I don't have that to look forward to.
Agony of defeat. That's right.
I've got all these things that I was looking forward to that I'm no longer looking forward to. It's funny. I was looking at the depth chart for the Cubs. And I'm like, okay, I recognize most of these names. I need to get back into the swing of that. I'm actually very excited about the World Baseball Classic. And I know that that's kind of a touchy subject for some people, but I really enjoy that kind of stuff. And I know Team USA is gonna have their first pitch officially on Saturday, I believe. And they've been kind of making their rounds through the Arizona Fall League. Or the Spring League, doing their thing. There's some names in that starting lineup, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm looking forward to that. So, spring practice is coming. I'm on the upswing, Sean. I'm on the upswing.
All right, maybe that's good for what ails you. We're just out of the season. You need some actual sports.
I need something
to kind of get you going again.
I need something. I need my kid to heal up, is what I need. So I have something to cheer about.
I mean, that'd be nice as well.
Killing me.
We're all pulling for you and Dylan and everybody else. So I'm glad. Okay, well, we'll see if that actually holds.
We'll see. Yeah,
if the cranky Vince persists.
I'll tell you what. If we go to the first spring practice and we don't see some positive things,
here it comes. Here it comes.
You're going to see the two old men in the balcony is what you're going to see.
Yeah. Like you were, like a specific example, I realize men's basketball teams suck this year, but you're really kind of, sticking it. You've been sticking it to them all year long.
I have. And I was excited, Sean, going into the year. I was excited. I signed up.
I was a little bit as well
for multiple games.
I bought into the whole, you got to be old and all that stuff. And
I was fully bought in. I had, reservations for however you want to say, because you have to sign up for each individual game now, which is dumb, but whatever.
Right.
So I signed up for multiple games. I went to the Michigan State game. That was a great game. I was like,
And that
okay,
really
here we
sucks you
go.
in. Yeah.
Like, this is great. And it just went downhill from there. Like,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I didn't go to any other games after that. I was like, I can't do it. I wanted to go to like the North Carolina game. That was at 9:00. And when they stunk by that point, I was like, I'm not staying up that late on a Wednesday. It was bad.
I know.
It was bad. It really was.
I know. But you were also, a little bit cantankerous about the whole, they're not going to let us talk to Guidugli. They're not going to let us talk to Joe Rudolph. And guess what? We got to talk to both of them last night.
You were right on that one. You were right on that one. They brought him out with. How did that work, by the way? Bringing the coaches out as well as all of these other players.
Yeah, I got there. It was supposed to start at 5:45, and I got there a couple minutes before 5:45, and there was already stuff in progress with like Braylon James, Jaden Greathouse, Rico Flores, Adon Schuler, and like one or two other. It was like full swing going. I'm like, great, so like I've got 3 recorders, and I start working the room with my recorders and all that kind of stuff. But then, so they rotated them out. They gave them about like 10 to 15 minutes each. They'd rotate them out, brought some other guys in, and then there was kind of a gap after the players were done. We had to wait a few minutes.
Okay.
And then first they brought in Joe Rudolph.
Okay.
And then a couple minutes after Rudolph sat down, Sam Hartman was actually the last player to come in. I forgot about that. And he plopped down at a table. And then about the time those guys were wrapping up, Gino Guidugli.
There it is.
I tongue-tied myself. I even said it right last night to his face, so I was kind of happy about that. But
Coach Guidugli.
That's right. He so that's kind of how, the whole rotation worked. And it took probably, what time was it by the time we got out of there? Not an hour and a half, but a little like an hour and 15 minutes or so by the time the whole thing was probably all said and done.
Wow.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Guidugli, it's interesting because he and Jared Parker are both from Kentucky.
Okay.
And I actually we wrote a story about Guidugli, and it's up on Irish Breakdown right now. They played against each other in the Kentucky State semifinals in high school, like before Guidugli went to Cincinnati and Parker went to Kentucky. And you'll have to read the story to find out who won. But I find it interesting that like Jared Parker has this, he's got his Southern accent, and that's probably not a good Parker accent, but he's got his Southern accent.
He's got a Southern accent drawl kind of accent.
And he's like a little more folksy,
Yes, agreed.
Whereas Gino Guidugli, like he's got like an East Coast Italian name, Guidugli, and like he has a lot more sort of matter-of-fact, pragmatic kind, like has no accent. He sounds much more, like an East Coast kind of guy than a guy from Kentucky, and they're both from Kentucky. So
interesting.
That kind of struck me.
I was really hoping he'd have like that Jersey accent. Like that's what I was really hoping.
Like that's actually kind of like I would think Jersey more than Kentucky for Guidugli.
That's what I was hoping for. I mean, Gino Guidugli.
That's right.
Past the cannoli.
That's exactly right.
That's what I was looking for, and I'm going to be gravely disappointed. I haven't watched any of the footage of any of the players talking that has been circulated through other media outlets today. I was waiting for this show specifically because I knew you were going to be throwing all kinds of stuff at me. So I waited. And so this is going to be the first time I've heard Rudolph talk, Guidugli talk. A lot of these young guys. I'm excited.
Well, you will hear it here in just a second then, because we do have plenty of audio from yesterday that we're going to play right now, and then we're going to talk about some of this. And so we got to talk to the whole group. Guidugli talked about watching film with Sam Hartman, and kind of sitting down and they went through, I think it was like the last 4 games that Hartman played at Wake Forest, and they're like,
Okay.
what'd you see here? What'd you see there? That kind of stuff. And then there was like some, terminology and stuff like that, like that they were talking about from Hartman's Wake Forest days. And so Guidugli was asked if they'll incorporate some of that Sam Hartman terminology into what they're doing now at Notre Dame, or if he's just going to have to kind of learn what Notre Dame's terminology is.
I know what
and
I
so,
would say.
and so here's what Gino Guidugli said to that. Now listen close, because he goes over a lot more than just that.
Okay.
So listen.
And he and I are learning at the same pace. So I would learn it in the morning, and I come teach it to them in the afternoon. And I told him as soon as I knew it, that I would get in and try to install it for them, because I know the transition through the first portion of the year for him, he expected to be further along. And with the coaching change and prior to me coming in, like, he thought he should be further along, in February than what he was. And there wasn't nothing I could do about that. So as I learned it, I told him, I promised him I would teach it to them. And, it's great to have Steve and Tyler in the room. Obviously, Tyler's been in there, understands the offense, and can kind of talk me through, like, hey, what was the procedural operation here? You know what I mean? What did you guys call this? And just kind of help me understand some things that maybe I wasn't aware of or didn't have knowledge of, to kind of get everybody in that room on the same page.
Okay, so there's Gino Guidugli talking about conversation with Sam Hartman, and you heard him talk about Tyler Buchner being in the quarterback room, since he is the quarterback coach, and talking, asking Tyler about sort of how things were run in the offense previously, and what they saw with these different things in the offense and what they did with the offense. And so Guidugli also talked about talking with Tommy Rees a couple of times since taking the job, and I'll let you hear that right now.
Me twice since being here. Talked to him actually on my drive down before my first day on the job, and then just talked to him recently.
And what did you take from that conversation?
Just trying to get a feel for the room, and some things on recruiting, and just it's offense he's been running, he's played in and been running. So just kind of get his perspective on some things. If I got questions, he's been very helpful just to be able to reach out to, and got no problem answering questions, and anything that I had concerns about or wanted to know why, explain them to me.
All right, so I'm looking at your face, Vince, and I'm trying to get a read on what you're thinking. You might be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. I guess my question is, there were little pieces inside each of those sound bites there. My question is, what offense are they running under Jared Parker now?
Yeah, I think that is the most surprising part of that entire thing, was that Gino Guidugli is coming in and learning the offense that was already in place, which, okay, I mean, I don't necessarily have a huge issue with it. I mean, it's a pro-style offense. There's a lot of things that you can do out of it. I mean, when it comes to play calling and things like that, I'm sure Jared Parker's going to be his own man, obviously, right? But it sounds like they're going to move in a direction where the current players are going to have this, not a very large learning curve. They want to keep at least the terminology and everything similar. Okay. I'm okay with that. It's a lot easier.
Get that to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier for a coach to come in and learn it than it is for, 50 kids to learn it. So, okay, I'm fine with that. I will also say that I hope that we see the difference between last year's offense and this year's offense. I don't care what terminology they're using.
Right.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
They have the same terminology. It's another thing, like, how different is this offense going to be? Because, that was one of the things that Marcus Freeman said at that press conference a couple of weeks ago when they introduced Jared Parker, was this is Jared Parker's offense. They're not running somebody else's offense. But listening to Gino Guidugli, it sounds like they're talking about more than terminology. It sounds like they're like the offense that we've seen for basically the last 13 years is the base offense, with maybe little subtle tweaks here and there inside and around it. Is that kind of what are we reading too much into this? What do you think?
I'm hoping that's not the case, if I'm being honest, but I can very easily see how you could go down that road listening to what he was saying. I mean, terminology is going to be the same. He was asking, I'm hoping that it was more like, okay, here's what you were doing. Explain it to me. And then you can use that information to build and create the offense that you need to create. I'm hoping that he just wanted to get inside Tyler's head and, understand what these guys have been doing since they've stepped foot on Notre Dame's campus. And that's fine. You need to know what the base knowledge is. You need to know what they're looking at. You need to know all of those different things. So that's my hope. I'm hoping that they don't just, like Tommy left the playbook on the desk when he walked out the door and they just picked it up and ran with it. Like, I'm hoping that's not the case. Terminology, I don't care about. It doesn't matter because all teams do the same stuff, as far as what things are called. I mean, that's fine. That doesn't matter. It's how you use it that is going to be the more important thing.
Well, and the other aspect of this is, I guess you could, again, have the same base offense, whether it's, 75%, 80% the same or whatever, but the other tweaks that I think Jared Parker talked about a little bit, going back to that, is the sort of discarding the things that maybe get guys hung up, in an attempt to get these more talented guys on the field and that kind of thing. Doing things, not just running a bunch of plays to say you've got a bunch of plays, but running plays that work for, the majority of those guys.
Yeah. Well, and they talked about that, right? They talked about, hey, if they're not getting it, you take it out. It's not about the perfect play. It's about doing what is best for the guys that are on the field. And so I'm more worried about the philosophy than I am about the terminology. Let's put it that way. So if the philosophy is clearly different, I'm not asking them to run the run and shoot or, that kind, I don't care about that part of it. I just want to see the guys that are on this team used to the best of their ability. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and a couple of different things. Decaf 18, so it's BK's offense that TR took over, and now it's Parker's. That's just great. Said no one ever. And I mean, that's basically kind of what I was thinking. And I agree with what you're saying, Vince. And Ramlek said, I don't mind them running his base offense, just don't call a pass on 1st and goal after running it down their throat. Yeah, I mean, it's the philosophical changes, I guess. How different will the mindset be? It's one thing to have the same playbook, but again, it's the tweaks that the guy in charge and, sort of the different eyes, the different mentality has on things. What's that going to look like? That is probably the more important thing as well. Like you said, terminology can stay the same. I don't think anybody cares about that. It's what does it actually look like on the field and who's able to go out there and run the plays.
Because you could take a playbook and I could give it to you and I could give it to Brian. I can give it to, Ryan, whatever. And okay, everybody go call a game, but you can only call plays out of this playbook. Every one of our offenses would look different. You know what I mean? It's based on your philosophy, how you see things, how you want to roll from one thing to the next. So, I mean, again, they're not going to use the exact same playbook. They're probably going to use a lot of the same terminology, which makes sense. You want to cut down that learning curve as much as you possibly can, and using the same terminology will do that, right? So this isn't the NFL where the offensive coordinator is going to bring in a brand new playbook and a brand new philosophy and a brand new everything. There's going to be some similarities because it cuts down on that learning curve. And I'm okay with that, but I need to see a different philosophy. That's what I need to see. And I don't even know if we're not going to get that answer until September?
No, I mean, we're definitely not going to get that in the spring. That's for sure.
Right.
Because again, for starters, we have no idea how much we're going to see in the spring.
Well, and the spring is more about fundamentals, right? Yeah. I mean, the spring is more about understanding the base and the foundation of everything. The install stuff happens in the fall, and so it might not look a whole lot different in the spring, in the spring game and all these other things. It may not, right? But we just need to see a lot of that foundational stuff, the fundamental stuff. We need to see that take a step in the right direction, and I think we'll be okay. We're going to see a lot of changes, I think, in the fall.
Yeah, I mean Marcus Freeman, has talked about one an O-line, D-line driven program, and
Yeah.
obviously this offense is geared for that. Want a pro style offense? It's a pro style offense, but the subtleties are going to be the big things. Like Tyler says, still good with the offense as long as they throw to the wide receivers, screens, outside zone, sweeps, and counters. And, do they throw downfield? All that, all those
Sure.
things mixed in.
Absolutely. And no doubt. I do find it interesting though that Guidugli and Tommy Rees have had 2 chats about stuff. I do find that to be very interesting because I think we can all agree that Tommy Rees loves Notre Dame and all of that. I don't think he was saying a bunch of hogwash, this time last year when he decided to stick around, right? I think that was all genuine. It was from the heart, right? And he made a career move, and I have no problem with that. But I am surprised that he's kind of given a roadmap and answering questions for the guy that took his job. Like that, that surprises me a little bit. I mean, they're not going to be sharing trade secrets or anything, but coaching at Notre Dame is a unique situation. And I'm sure Gino Guidugli had some unique questions about that. And the fact that Tommy was an open book about it is as far as we know. I'm impressed.
And I mean, Tommy is a Notre Dame alum. He coached here, obviously, for not a long time, but for several years as well. And it's not like Notre Dame and Alabama are on the schedule playing each other this year. And so you would hope that as an alum and a guy leaving the program who is basically, not doing it to stick it to Notre Dame, but to advance his career, you would hope that, he would maybe kind of have that support. So I wasn't totally surprised to hear that. I was, maybe a little bit, the fact that they talked twice. Not just once,
no doubt.
Twice. He's like, I talked to him when I was driving down, from Wisconsin, and then they've talked again since then. But Tommy knows the personnel, and especially the quarterbacks, because beyond just the fact that he was the offensive coordinator, he was also the quarterbacks coach, and that obviously pertains directly to what Guidugli's trying to do right now.
I agree with a lot of the people in the chat talking about how it speaks well of Tommy and all of that. And I agree. It does. It speaks volumes about him. He could have been like, Guidugli, ignore. Like, he didn't have to talk to him. You know what I mean? I actually, not that I didn't have, a high opinion of who Tommy Rees is as a human. I did. But like this, that speaks volumes to me.
No, you didn't. You're cranky. You're cranky.
I mean, I don't run from cops, but
oh man! See, now you're going. That's just a cheap shot.
It is a total.
You're going back to his college playing days.
Cheap
Tell
shot.
me what kind of dumbass stuff you were doing in college, and then let's talk about
total cheap shot.
Who gets to take cheap shots at who? Because I know Vince D'Addario has some skeletons in his closet.
You were out defending our country when you were that age, and I was
doing dumbass stuff then too. Like you'd be surprised at what It's not like, hey, people in the military don't do anything stupid. Like when I was out hanging out in Brent Smith land, in Monterey, California, I had a few too many one night, and there's this little rocky formation called Lover's Point where I broke my foot, so.
Oh, no, total cheap shot on my part. There's no doubt about it. From a football standpoint.
But I didn't run from cops.
See?
I guess I got that going for me.
The MPs show up, you do what you're supposed to do. All right.
Right.
But no, look, I have a high opinion of Tommy in this regard, that he was willing and able to sit down on the phone, obviously, but to talk it out, like answer any questions that Gino had. I mean, that's huge to me.
Well,
that's huge.
Here's interesting one. Berkshire Yank, shouldn't the head coach know the answers? Well,
he's not going to know all the ins and the outs of the quarterbacks.
Of the quarterbacks specifically. We already know that Tommy was given obviously a lot of, free reign with what he was doing, autonomy, if that's,
sure.
That was kind of the catchword. So it just makes sense. Talk to the guy who was directly in charge of the quarterbacks,
right.
And I would imagine that Marcus Freeman helped set that up. Either Marcus Freeman or Jared Parker probably set that call up. So
I'm sure
the initial one anyway.
Right. And look, there are a million things that I knew that the head coach had no idea of even in the high school level, like what we do on a day-to-day basis, some
Mhm.
relationshipy things, like what does this kid do better than this kid specifically, like all of that stuff. The head coach isn't going to know that. He shouldn't have to know that. He shouldn't have to be bothered with the minutia of how to coach a quarterback. It's not his job. That's why he hires a quarterback's coach. So there's a lot of stuff that Tommy would know that Marcus wouldn't. And I don't have any problem with that.
Right. Now, speaking of Tommy, Sam Hartman, Notre Dame's new quarterback, as I mentioned, Sam Hartman was one of the guys who spoke with the media last night. Got our first chance to talk with him, and he was asked about Reese leaving and what his month of February was like after Reese left, because of course Hartman just got here on campus in the middle of January.
It was, it feels like forever ago, and again, we just got out of a QB meeting, and Coach Gino's, doing a really good job working with Coach Parker, and I mean, we're full steam ahead. It seems like light years ago, and again, Tommy or Coach Reese is, it's a business decision, and it was understood. But again, like we put the pedal to the metal with spring ball coming up. We got spring break next week, and we're trying to get in as much as we can install-wise. But as the old saying goes, it is what it is. There wasn't much to it. We got the guys hired, and we're excited, and the QB room's fired up. Really like what Coach Gino's done. He's obviously had a very successful record in quarterbacks, and then in just college football in general. And he's very sharp. You guys will talk to him. You'll see him very personable. And again, I feel like we've gelled really well in a short amount of time. And for me, it's different. I had the same coach for 5 years, and so again, it was all new to me. But again, it's the guys around you that kind of kept you in it for those couple weeks where we were in limbo, and then you get your orders and you go.
It is what it is, Vince. It is what it is. And like Sam Hartman, I think he's got a career in politics because he talked right around,
yes, he did.
Whatever controversy there might have been there. What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he answered that question perfectly. It was, hey, this is who we have. And, I love Coach Gino and I love Tommy Reese. And I mean, he was very complimentary all the way around. I don't know what people thought he was going to say. I mean, I was planning on leaving. Tommy left. I'm heading to Alabama. And
I think that's why the question was at,
sure.
Without saying, hey, did you ever think about leaving? That's kind of how it was floated out there. There was some ups and downs
sure
in the month of February.
There's no doubt about it. And I think that, now that the ship has been steadied appropriately, I think that he's excited about it. I think he's probably a little bit frustrated because I'm sure he expected to be, as Gino mentioned in one of the previous cuts, I'm sure he expected to be way further along into where things are with the playbook and all of that. And I know that he's been, doing some 7-on-7s and throwing with some guys and all of that. Of course he wanted to be further along than where he's at right now. So that's got to be frustrating. There's no doubt. He's probably a month behind. And, now he's going to be full steam ahead and see where things go.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the glitch when you come into a situation, you use a grad transfer, you go to a new school, you get there in the middle, again, you get there in the middle of January, when the semester starts up, and within about 2.5 weeks, your offensive coordinator's gone. And,
right.
So then obviously you've got to go through the process of finding your next offensive coordinator and hiring the quarterback coach and all that kind of stuff. So he did talk about he's spent some time. He actually went fishing with Jared Parker this past weekend and met his family. And, he talked, in some of the other stuff that he was talking about, just like the fact, the building up the trust bank, essentially, both with Guidugli and with Jared Parker. And that's kind of where they are right now, sort of all feeling each other out and getting to know each other right now. But again, that's behind now too, because of the fact that they had to go through all the hiring process.
Well, and it's incredibly important, even though Jared Parker's not the quarterback's coach, it's still incredibly important for him and Sam Hartman to be on the same page, right? Because the way I envision that conversation going is very similar to the way the conversation would go when I would talk to the quarterbacks that I would work with, right? It's, hey, here's my vision for what the offense looks like, and here's how you fit into it, right? And do you think that that's I would ask them, do you think this is something that you would want to do? Like, what are you comfortable with? All of those different things, because then that shapes what you want to call and what you want to install and where you're at. Because look, every offensive coordinator out there knows what their quarterback is comfortable doing. Always. And when it hits the fan in a game, you want to be able to go to what the quarterback's comfortable doing, what is in their wheelhouse, right?
Right.
So you got to get to know the quarterbacks. You're coaching the tight ends, but you got to know the quarterbacks. You've got to know what they're comfortable doing, where they are, and all of those different things in their headspace. And so I think that was a fantastic idea. Take them fishing and do all those. Because what do you do when you're fishing, Sean? You sit there
and talk.
You talk. You learn about each other and you talk. Like that's perfection, man. I love that.
Yeah. Are you a fisherman?
I am not. It's too boring.
I'm not. I'm
sorry.
I should have known because
I'm sure I've insulted multiple people
because the Finstadario patience level is worse than the Sean Steyer's patience level, and I know what my patience level is, and like sitting around, especially when it's either hot or cold, and it's like, come on, just something bite here. I don't have time for this,
Hard.
And then you got to go through the whole, you got to gut the fish and all that stuff.
And see, I'm kind of a weenie when it comes to stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I'll watch other people do it, but that's, it's not what. So I was watching, what is it? The 1883 or whatever on Paramount Plus. It's like
is that the Yellowstone?
Yeah. So it's the very first yellow. And the 5-year-old kid kills his first deer, and the dad sticks his hand in there and he bloods the kid and he puts the blood on his face. And I'm like, why? Why are we like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. I don't see myself sticking my hand up into a deer and then putting the blood on my kid's face like that. It's just not me. It's a lot of other people. It's just not me.
Yeah. You should have watched. You should be watching The Last of Us because, like you want to talk about killing and what they're eating and not eating. And, this last episode last weekend.
Okay.
Put
it on the list.
That was something. Yeah. But you got to have HBO or HBO Max. So
I'm out. I'm out.
That's right.
I only have so many. Can only afford so many services.
I hear you. I hear you.
I got to get Apple TV back because Ted Lasso.
It is
coming
out.
What
days today?
It's
6 days from now. 6 days from now.
My son's birthday. Ted Lasso comes out with.
I forgot that your son's birthday was in March as well.
That's right.
Yet another thing that our little circle has in common. Jesse's is in 10 days. Like I said, he's coming back tomorrow. We're doing a little birthday celebration this weekend. So
all right. I know.
Sean is big time HBO Max. I don't know about big time, but all I know is we've got the HBO subscription and the HBO Max comes with it, so like you can always go back and watch an on-demand episode if you missed something or whatever, or if you just want to rewatch it. So I went back and rewatched it. It was a crazy episode. Did you ever get into The Walking Dead or any of that stuff?
No.
See, I haven't either. And I don't want to spoil too much, but this Last of Us, I knew nothing about it before it started, but apparently it's based on a video game. And like it's a video game with a storyline. And so some of the story is the same, some of it, they've written characters in and different stuff like that, but there's like zombie apocalypse type stuff, but it's not heavy on the zombies.
Yeah.
Like, this past week's episode was one of a handful where they had 0 zombies in the whole episode.
Interesting.
So,
it's hard for me to get into
the zombie in 3 episodes.
It's hard for me to get into the zombie stuff, like what I mean? Like that's.
I hear you.
But then I turn right around and like watch like Star Trek and things like that. So I don't know. I can't explain it.
Brian wants to know what a hand in a deer has to do with fishing, by the way.
Just has to do with gutting animals.
Yeah.
And, being a manly man that apparently I'm not. I think that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah. I did more hunt, I did some fit, my dad was kind of outdoors, but like we did more hunting together than fishing. Like I think even his patience ran out with fishing at some point. So It's like you better have a cooler with you if you're
Right.
going fishing, you know?
Right. Exactly.
There you go. Vision Poet. Pedro Pascal is great. Great show. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Vision. There's Vision. He said it's fantastic. It is. It's a really good show. Especially, again, knew nothing about this video game before it ever came up. One more soundbite from Sam Hartman.
Okay.
Before we move on with this portion of the show tonight. He also discussed improving his NFL draft stock. And, that's part of the reason that he came here and what's going to be his one and done year at Notre Dame.
Just it's a good question. I think there's always aspects of your game you can grow. You can say arm strength, talent, accuracy. I think it's just being able to come in here, and it kind of goes with why I decided to, do another year, was coming to a new place, have to learn a new group of guys, learn a new offense, take charge, take a leadership role, take a following role, everything in between. Kind of like a mini NFL jump in a sense of just making that adjustment of coming in being a new guy, but also being expected to be a leader, be an old guy, and learning the ropes while also trying to take charge of the ropes. I think all those things were kind of try and help me in that aspect. But once I step foot in here, it's not like is this going to help me? Mm-hmm. It's more, is this going to help the Irish win on Saturdays or in Ireland? So that's really the whole goal right now. All the NFL stuff after that just happens, takes care of itself.
See, I like the way he wrapped that up there at the end with, it's still about the team winning and those kind of things. Because like if you flash back to about a year ago when Brandon Joseph came in the door, when he used his transfer to come to Notre Dame, virtually all he was talking about is elevate the draft stock, all that stuff.
Sure.
And I don't think we saw the best of Brandon Joseph by any stretch. It just felt like the mindset was wrong from the beginning.
Right. And he kind of proved that throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest. And Sam Hartman's saying all the right things, and I love that about him. And I think has a lot to do with his maturity level and, the fact that he was on a TV show when he was in high school. Like he's learned what to say, right? And I think that's very, very clear. Now, I'm not saying that he's lying in any stretch of the imagination. I just think that he is a master of the word salad, though. I mean, he does a good job.
He really, I will give him, and I don't mean this, this maybe, will sound like a shot, but he really finds ways to say a lot of words without saying much.
Right, exactly.
He really did.
Right.
And there was another answer that went like 2.5 minutes, and I can't even remember what it was about. I was sitting there and I'm reading the transcript. It's like, what? What did you say? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair and appropriate, I think,
Yeah. But I do like, the team mindset. He feels, because you can, you've been around, you work with kids all the time. You can sniff through the BS.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And I like to think that we both have a pretty good BS meter for the most part. And he was just, kind of kick back and chill the whole time. And there was never a vibe of, I'm just sitting here BS and deflecting every question that you guys are going to throw at me. It just felt like, a guy who's got a really even keel.
Yeah.
A guy who's been around the block going into his 6th year, and he knows what he needs to do. And, he's not going to sweat the small stuff, I'm kind of
right.
Going back to, it is what it is comment that he made about Tommy Rees leaving. He just seems like a very pragmatic, to the point kind of guy. I don't know about to the point, considering we just talked about the word salads, but very pragmatic kind of person who's kind of over a lot of stuff,
Right. Absolutely. And he's going to be, to a degree, he's going to be a go with the flow kind of guy. He's going to be, but he's going to work his butt off, and he wants to win. Because look, at the end of the day, if it's about draft status, let's say he takes Notre Dame to a national championship or even the national championship game, or has a lot of success team-wise, guess whose draft stock's going to go up?
That's right.
His. I mean, It's a product of success right there. So, I think he understands that. I think he's smart enough to understand the more team success they have, the more individual success he's going to have now and in the future.
Yeah, I mean, just being at Notre Dame, his profile has risen drastically compared to being at Wake Forest. So,
no doubt.
Yeah. All right, before we get into rapid fire, where we will have some more sound bites, by the way, I wanted to play one from Joe Rudolph, the new offensive line coach, who was asked about sort of what his philosophy is when it comes to figuring out what his starting five will look like on the offensive line.
On the group short if you weren't trying to find the best five, and I think you have to do that with some vision of how the whole group fits together. Right. So there may be someone that's competing their tail off, and they might back up Joe, or they might back up Zeke. But if they play in a way this spring where you see that they're one of those five, you can easily move them into position and have them ready in fall camp and all summer to take that over. So that's what I shared with them. Like I want to be smooth. I want to see guys at their best spot where they feel that is. But the evaluation and assessment will always try to get the best five on the field.
So get the best five on the field and don't worry about what position they are. That's kind of where that question generated from. Don't go like, okay, these are the tackles, these are the guards, this is the center. Figure out who your best five guys are and find a way to get them on the field. You like that?
100%. That is how I have always operated when it comes to the offensive line. You get your best five on the line within reason, of course. I mean,
center might be kind of the,
right, exactly.
the trickier issue because you still have to find a guy, who can handle all the center duties, not just being a good blocker.
Absolutely, 100%. And that was going to be the point that I was going to make. Who was the kid that was the right guard last year for Notre Dame? He's been there forever and a day. Thank you. He was a terrible center because he's 6'8". Like that doesn't work. He's just too dang big, right? And so there obviously is, some, you have to be tailored to the position, but at the same time, yeah, you want your five best guys, man. I'm not going to put an inferior player at guard when I know that my backup tackle is going to be better. You put your best five on the field and you figure out how to make it work. So I love that philosophy.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it makes the most sense. And, I think that was, I was glad to hear that. And I've got to go through the Rudolph stuff a little bit deeper because I stood there and listened to a lot of what he said. He's, fairly, you heard his voice, a fairly, he doesn't have the rasp, like a Harry Stanford example.
But he still sounds like an O-line coach to me. Like he still has that demeanor. It feels like even if it was just audio for me, like he still comes off as like an O-line coach.
Right. Before we get to rapid fire, I just realized, I never did the obligatory smash the like button and all that stuff. And, it really does help Irish Breakdown when you do that. Like I was looking back, I remember going into the season, we had less than 12,000 subscribers and now just on the YouTube channel. And now we're pushing, we're getting close to 14,000. So it's gone up, a pretty fair amount over the course of the season. And, where we really, where it really helps Irish, the YouTube channel helps, but what you should do, because where it really helps Irish Breakdown is if you subscribe to the podcast, like on your Apple Podcasts and that kind of stuff. That's where it really
get those downloads, baby.
That's right. We don't have to go into all those details. But even if you don't, listen to the podcasts all the time, just get into your Apple or your Spotify or whatever and subscribe to the Irish Breakdown podcast because that helps us out tenfold.
Absolutely. Right there. See?
Tons.
I'm listening to one right now. I was listening to the mailbag from yesterday from Brian and Ryan. So, and then Lucky Lefty just popped up. So I'm a subscriber, baby. I'm downloading. I'm right there.
T-Guns has Android. So just download the Spotify app and You can,
They automatically download. It's a
you
win.
can subscribe to the Irish Breakdown podcast in Spotify. That's all you have to do. Boom.
Nice.
Just like that. No matter what kind of phone you have. Helps it. It's not just lip service. It really helps us out.
Oh, it helps big time. It helps
We
feed my
appreciate it.
children. So
That's exactly right.
yeah,
Like
I'll just put it right out there.
Neither one of us would be sitting here without those podcast downloads. Let's put it that way.
Correct.
Right? But
we are literally paid based on those downloads. I don't care who knows it. That it is what it is, people.
See, like I'm not familiar with this Romlock guy, but I'm big time because I have HBO Max and because I have Apple product. So, all right.
That is hilarious.
Ant wants to know how to listen to the broadcasts of Notre Dame women's basketball. That's another app. If you go to the Odyssey app, is it
correct?
Did I say it right?
Yes.
It's AUDACY.
It
Odyssey.
looks like this one right there, like a little A.
Yeah.
With a circle.
Yep. Download the Odyssey app, and then I think if you just search like Notre Dame women's basketball, it'll pop right up, and you can follow those broadcasts. I think, right?
It's actually once you have listened to it at least once, right? Here I'm pulling up the app, and so I can show people. And obviously, this is a visual situation, but at the top, it will just automatically have women's basketball, men's basketball at the top, and then you just click on it and it goes, and
Boom.
It's awesome.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah, it's great because it technically comes out of Indianapolis. That's like where the hub of the radio side of things is coming. So that's what it says. This is women's basketball, Indianapolis, Indiana.
There you go. And Tommy is now subscribed. Good job.
Thank you, Tommy.
Appreciate it.
My man.
Appreciate Ant for asking about the women's basketball. And we'll find out Sunday night where the women's basketball team is going. When
my kids are actually very excited and hopeful that Notre Dame is obviously going to host because they want to go to the games.
Yeah.
With my in-laws. So they're all excited. They're hoping, they got their fingers crossed it's going to be home games so that they can go to a few.
I hope so too. And
I know you do.
And then I hope
live in a hotel for a week.
And I'll just put this out there. I hope we go to Seattle afterwards as well. So instead of Greenville, South Carolina.
You've already charted out the way you
want to go. There's only two places to go for the regionals because the way they're doing it, they've got the Seattle hub and the Greenville, South Carolina hub. And like on the men's side, how they have 4 locations, like once you get to the Sweet 16, they're basically running 2 regionals in each of those hubs. So everyone who gets to the Sweet 16 is either going to 8 teams are going to Seattle, 8 teams are going to Greenville, South Carolina. You obviously are not going to play each other, but then so that's how.
Where's the Final Four this year?
Dallas, Texas. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. With that, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm always ready, baby.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, got a little more audio. And here is Gino Guidugli talking about Tyler Buchner last night.
Going to take a backseat to anybody. I mean, Tyler Buchner is going to go out here to compete for the starting quarterback position. He's going to get an opportunity to compete for it, just like the rest of those guys in the room. Like I told him downstairs, I'm coming in with a clean slate. Like, I know what I know of them knowing the offense and understanding the offense by the way I've installed it, the way I've quizzed them, and what they've done so far out in football school. But those guys are all going to be given an opportunity to go out there and execute and compete, and I don't think Tyler's going to take a backseat to anybody.
Tyler Buchner's not going to take a back seat to
Love
anybody.
that.
What do you think, Vince? What's that say to you?
Freaking love it, dude. Like that. I don't even care if it's lip service. I don't care. At least they're saying it. At least they're saying it, right? I mean, you have to tell Tyler, hey man, this job is up for grabs.
Yeah.
Right. You have to. Otherwise, I mean, he's a competitor. He wants to compete for the job. He sees the writing on the wall. He knows everything that we all know, right? But you've got to say those things. And he said it, Gino Guidugli, to his credit, he said it with conviction. And he said it right out in the open in his first interview at Notre Dame. And so I love it. Whether it comes to fruition or not, I love it. Because you have to keep pushing him. Because not only do you want him to push for the starting job? But if and when he doesn't get it, you need him to stick around because there's still a future for Tyler Buchner at Notre Dame. And so you want him to be here, for the foreseeable future. So saying all the right things, man. Love it.
I agree with that, and I'll answer a couple other questions here in just a second. But I think it's great, and I don't think that it's just lip service. Maybe it's just lip service. He's talking about coming in with a clean slate, but there is, a fair response to that. Tommy Guns, he's not coming in with a clean slate if he's talking to Tommy Rees, so he, to an extent, he is sort of muddying the waters when he talks about coming in with a clean slate, but it's clean, at least to the extent that he's not seen either one of these guys on a practice field before. And he's never, worked with them and designed plays for them and tried to figure them out and watch them compete up close and personal. So I guess at least to that extent, but it is, it's a fair counterpoint that he's talking to Tommy Rees about these guys. So it's not a perfectly clean slate by any means.
Sure. I mean, but he's not asking Tommy Rees for the depth chart either. Like there's certain things that you're asking for and you're trying to get information on and all of that. He's not, it's like, oh, that was your dad. That's how you saw it going in. Okay, cool. That's what we're going to do then. Like, that's not what's happening. So yes, is he getting information on the guys? Absolutely. But he's going to form his own opinions as well. I mean, he doesn't know these guys. He's going to come in, he's going to talk to them, he's going to see them, he's going to work them out, he's going to do all those things. And that's what's going to determine who's starting and how it looks.
By the way, I meant to say earlier, like when we heard, I think it was Joe Rudolph talking, you heard like some whistles and some yelling and, kind of stuff in the background. That was inside the Irish Athletic Center, and the soccer team was actually practicing in there last night. So it was not football practice, because they're obviously not practicing yet. Soccer team was in there practicing.
The soccer team. Now those soccer players.
But Salty Virginia Peanuts, our old pal, has a question. Why does Lucky Lefty show live clips, but IB doesn't show the video? And by live clips, I assume he means the video. So this is going to be a little bit inside baseball, this explanation. But, the videos that get put, they post the videos, Notre Dame does, up on the website. They do, like, the print/internet media goes upstairs, and like the TV crews, anyone with a camera goes downstairs. And every one of these guys, whether it's the coach or the players, it's got to be a pain in the butt for them. They do 2 media sessions. Mm-hmm. So they typically, like, if you start downstairs in front of the TV cameras, you'll do that for about 15 minutes. And then when you're done with that, you go upstairs and then you go to another spot. And then that's when you talk to, the radio,
print,
that kind of stuff. People without cameras. So you're getting 2 different sets of questions. And since I don't have a camera, I'm not sitting down there, with the TV guys. I'm up, with the print media. Like, that's where Irish Breakdown is. Now, Irish Breakdown, like, if we wanted to have video, we could have a camera down there and all that stuff.
Sure.
So the long and the short of it is, the questions that either I'm asking or, people around me are asking are all going to be caught on my recorder up, that is not a TV camera. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's part of why, we do it this way. And the other thing is, like, for my purposes, when I'm transcribing, doing stories, all this stuff, I've got the audio right in front of me. So it's easier for me just to grab that audio, cover it with the photo, and then play the audio than it is to go back, scroll through, dig through the video and find sometimes the same thing, but sometimes, it's not even there. So, like, a lot of it is for my ease, but it's,
well, and the other thing is the 2 guys from Lucky Lefty, they're not local, so they're not getting their own audio. They're
not sitting there doing the process that I'm talking about.
They're getting the video straight from the website, Notre Dame's website. They're getting the video straight from there, and you're only allowed to use X amount of minutes for and still be monetized and all of that. You can't use. I think it's like 3 minutes. Does that sound right?
3 minutes of video. Yeah,
3 minutes of video total, and if you're using more than that, you can get in big trouble.
Right.
So I don't know what Lucky Lefty's doing. I love those guys over there, but it's just they're going at it a different way because neither one of them is local.
Right. They're not at the media, doing the media process like we're talking about. They're just whatever, Notre Dame uploads to the website, they're pulling the video and then they're editing the video from there. So it's just a much easier process for me just to pull the audio and do it the way I do.
You're an audio guy. You're a radio guy.
And I mean,
how we roll, man.
Does it matter that much if you're watching the guy talk as opposed to, just hearing his response, like
Some
watching
people
his
like the
lips
visual,
move?
I guess. I don't know.
I get it. But come on.
It's the same
All
people
right.
like to look at us, I guess, which
yeah,
that's questionable at best anyway.
I mean, if those are your options, there are a lot better places to go. All right. So Virginia Tech grad transfer, Kaleb Smith. He was, this was newcomer night. That's why everyone was out there last night. And so he, responded to a lot of different things. He was asked about Joe Rudolph. They were together at Virginia Tech last year in Rudolph's only year as offensive line coach at Virginia Tech, where Smith was a wide receiver. So here's what he had to say, Smith, about Rudolph.
I was talking to him the other day. I mean, he's the guy that I think he had the most respect walking around the Virginia Tech facilities because he was probably the nicest person you would talk to unless you're on a football field. When you're on the football field, he's the real deal, and he commanded respect from the offensive linemen that I've never seen before. And I mean, as an outsider looking into their room, I'm like, man, like he's being pretty tough on them, but I mean, they loved him to death. So I mean, obviously that speaks to the man and the coach he is.
So what do you think about that? What does it say that a guy like Smith, who was not, of course, part of Joe Rudolph's position group, has so many glowing things to say about him?
I think that's great. I mean, I guess it's better than like the canned answer of, well, I was a wide receiver and I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with him.
Exactly.
That's
which is the way that he easily could have gone with that.
Absolutely. And so he went out of his way to speak to specifics. And I think that says a lot because he's right. And anybody that's ever played football before, been around a football team, you have the most interaction, obviously, with your position coach. You don't have a whole lot of interaction with another position's coach, right? And he sounded like he had admiration for the way things were done in that room. And so, and on top of that, he's only there for a year, right? And he was able to instill that and get the respect and all of those things after only 1 year. So pretty impressive, actually. And kudos to Kaleb Smith for realizing that and being able to articulate it in that manner. I mean, he's a wide receiver. People are asking him about an offensive line coach. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I think it bodes well for Notre Dame. Like any questions that maybe we had about Joe Rudolph. Now we've still got to see him actually obviously go out there and coach the offensive line. But everything that I'm seeing and hearing so far from all these guys, I'm liking so far. And that goes for like what you just said about Kaleb Smith and his ability to articulate. And because I can't imagine, like for Smith or for Sam Hartman, that the media beats where they were, like the whole process that I just described was like, first you do TV and then you go upstairs and you do print media, like all these different. I can't imagine that at either place, Wake Forest or Virginia Tech, their media obligations are anything like what they saw last night here at Notre Dame.
No chance. I mean, and I know that sounds like an elitist Notre Dame thing to say, but
it's true.
There's no way. No way.
Right. Decaf 18, at least Sean's mic is working tonight. New microphone, Decaf, in case you hadn't noticed. I'm glad you like it. I'm still kind of working through, like when I play the audio, for example, like we were talking about the audio, is it really loud to you? Is it about the same?
Louder, but not like crazy.
Okay. I'm working through the whole.
Yeah, you're good. You'll get it.
Controls on this new microphone. So yeah, hopefully, eventually.
I have faith in you.
All right, fill in the blank, Vince. It's blank that Jim Boeheim is done after 47 years at Syracuse.
Weird. I'll say weird, when I think of Syracuse and I think of Syracuse basketball, you think of two things, right? You think of Jim Boeheim and you think of the 2-3 zone. And the 2-3 zone is there because of Jim Boeheim.
And they can both be gone now. Yeah.
I mean, it
One's definitely
was
gone.
and the way it went down was really strange.
Bizarre.
Like, I heard the audio of him at his press conference post game, and they're like, "Is this going to be your final year?" He's like, "Well, I don't know. Ask the school. Well, do you want to come back?" I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Do you not want to come back? I didn't say that either.
I didn't say that either.
What? And then within like an hour, the school announces that he's retired, or that he's no longer coming back or whatever. Right? It was just it doesn't feel like a guy who's been there for 47 years the way he should go out.
It felt like it. Yeah. It felt like it definitely could have and should have been handled better from the Syracuse perspective. Just what you're talking about. Like, even Mike Bray in the middle of the season said, okay, I'm stepping down at the end of the season. So he got a send-off to an extent.
Right. Yeah,
like
for sure.
If Syracuse was going to do this, why didn't they just say going into the ACC tournament, let him announce, this is it, no matter what happens, I'm gone. And like to say he's gone, and now they might end up in the NIT, and he's not even going to coach them in the NIT in the final games.
I didn't see that.
All this different stuff. Like, even bigger, a couple different things with Jim Boeheim. I'm a little bit, I don't know, torn is like one of the first things that came to mind is like within a span of 2 years, Jim Boeheim is now done. Mike Krzyzewski is gone. Roy Williams is gone. Like, between the three of them, you have what? Like well over 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
Pushing 150 years of total coaching experience right there, all gone within a span of
a year.
3 seasons. Yeah, like a year from each other, something like that.
Yeah,
and then you throw Mike Bray into the mix as well.
He's got 20 plus. I mean,
yeah, because those guys were definitely the long, even Mike Bray's tenure at Notre Dame obviously was longer than Roy Williams at North Carolina. But if you combine Kansas and North Carolina, because he left Kansas on his own to go to North Carolina. But so you're losing 3 giants in college basketball coaching within a span of a calendar year of each other, basically. But
what does that make
Boeheim? With Boeheim, well,
the court jester.
I don't think we put him in legendary status. Like,
okay.
All 3 of those guys have national champions.
No, you're 100% correct. He does not
himself.
He does not belong in that category at all. But tenure wise, is where we're talking.
Syracuse handled it, as Ted is saying here, very poorly. He was their guy. He'd been there for nearly 5 decades. From the outside looking in, I'm not going to say I'm going to miss Jim Boeheim, because I sitting there, I watched PTI last night with Kornheiser and Wilbon, and they spoke so glowingly about Jim Boeheim, and they love Jim Boeheim and all this. You and I both know people like this. It's one thing when how you treat people who can do something for you, like Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. It's one thing to treat them with great respect. It's another thing to dress down the peon, who's coming through the Syracuse journalism school because he asks you a somewhat tough question. When you're just going to crap on the peon, but you're treating the guys up here who are on TV every night with all this respect. That's where I have the problem. With a guy like Jim Boeheim and frankly with a guy like Mike Krzyzewski as well.
He was a curmudgeon at the in the best way.
Right.
I mean, he was. When Notre Dame was in the Big East, they obviously had, a bit of a rivalry there. I mean, and you played Syracuse home and away a lot. And, number one, I hate the fact they play in the giant dome. I think it's stupid. That's not for basketball. Number two, I was never really a big fan of his. I really wasn't. I respected the fact that he could coach the crap out of the zone defense.
Right.
That's not an easy defense to just stay in all the time. And he did a really good job of it. But he's kind of a jerk. I mean, on the sidelines, jerk. In the press conferences, jerk. And as bad as Syracuse handled this whole situation, he didn't handle it any better.
No.
And,
No.
and the
He still
audio
went
I
out being
heard,
sort of defiant Jim
Yes.
Boeheim for no real reason. you know?
he kept pushing back on the female reporter, whoever it was. He
Right.
kept pushing back every time she was trying to get him to clarify what he was saying, and he was not helpful in any way.
Yeah. I was never a Jim Boeheim fan. It didn't help that they knocked off Kansas in the tournament a couple of times, but I was never a Boeheim fan even before that. But like where I turned on him a little bit, this has been 15, 16. It's been a while when the whole Jerry McNamara stuff came up in the press conference when, again, this was like turning the screws on the media, but they were kind of putting the screws to one of his guys, Jerry McNamara, and he, went into the whole, we wouldn't have won one bleeping game without Jerry McNamara this year. So my opinion turned on him a little bit with that, but I just was never a fan of how he dealt with, again, more lesser known media types in the press conference settings over the years.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
But I do think that his own school owed him more than, with the way
I absolutely agree with that. Like, and let's say after 47 years of being the head coach, and Ted said that he's been there a total of 55 years.
Right. Back to his assistant days and, all
I
that
get it.
stuff. Yeah.
If you wanted to make a change as a university, you are more than entitled to do that. But give the guy a little bit of respect for keeping him around as long as you did, and let him go out, with a little bit of fanfare, regardless of how maybe he handles things behind closed doors or whatever. Like, it was just handled poorly on both sides.
Very poorly. So there's been a lot of talk this week about Aaron Rodgers, because there's always talk about Aaron Rodgers, but this talk specifically about going to the Jets. Do you want to see Aaron Rodgers traded to the New York Jets?
Yes. And you want to know why? Because I want to see him dealing with the New York media.
Yes,
all the
exactly.
time.
That's almost all we have to say. That was my response as well.
That's it.
Like, he thinks he's got it bad in Green Bay.
Oh.
I want to see him in that New York media maelstrom. That's what I want to see.
The Green Bay media probably owns shares of the team, right? I mean, that's who we're talking about here, okay? The New York media is going to eat him and his weirdness and his non-answer answers and everything. They're going to eat him alive, and I am there with Terrell Owens and my popcorn. Like, that is I can't wait.
Well, it's just, again, like all this drama, and he loves it. He's sitting back thriving on it right now. Apparently, the Packers said, if Aaron Rodgers tells us that he wants to be traded, we're more than glad to
what does that tell you?
A trade.
What does that tell you too, by the way?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they owe him a ton of money, and so I'm sure they want to get out from under that. I get that completely. But they're sick and tired of the Aaron Rodgers circus. I mean, he is a future Hall of Famer. I don't think anybody's going to question his talent, right? But all the off-the-field nonsense, the Packers are ready to just be like, yep, we're good. They're going to get everything they can for him and all of that, obviously. But they're like, hey, you want to be traded? Just let us know where. And we'll start the negotiations.
He's been on a downhill slide since the discount double checks went away. It's like he was at his peak then, and it's just been peak weirdness and drama. Gosh. I just think he literally he's just glad everyone's talking about him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He really doesn't care if they pursue a trade. But
I
completely agree.
Show
I want to see that New York media just eat him up. That's what I want to see.
I am praying that he goes to the Jets, because do we really think the Jets are going to be a contender? Right. I mean, they got a great defense. I get it. There's a lot of parts there that people I'm sure like, but it'll get screwed up somehow. And, it's going to be glorious.
They think they're a quarterback away.
Yes, they do.
I'd like to see it. I would like to see it in that division with the Bills and the Dolphins. Speaking of quarterbacks, after Baltimore slapped the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, none of the other 31 teams in the NFL have inquired about acquiring Jackson. And I know, there's collusion talk and all this different kind of stuff. But I guess my question, plain and simple, would you want Lamar Jackson as your quarterback?
No, I wouldn't. There are too many parallels to the kid who is the quarterback for the Panthers. Number one,
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton, thank you. I don't know why my brain just is like mush by the
It
end of the
happens
day.
sometimes.
But like, there's too many parallels there. Top of his game, running quarterback, injury prone towards the end, and just can't get back to the way he used to be. And I just feel like that is where Lamar Jackson is headed. That's the path that he's headed. So do I I have no problem with the Ravens kind of playing some hardball with the money, because they're going to paint themselves in a corner financially if they throw all this money at him, and he's injured all the time, and that's not going to do them any good. And so I have no problem with it whatsoever. And no, I would not. I mean, my team does have a running quarterback, and I have a feeling it's probably going to end up the same way. And so it's not what I like out of my quarterback, and I'm not willing to sink that kind of cash into him.
The problem is, if you're going to take on Lamar Jackson, you've got to rework your whole offense to suit Lamar Jackson's skills. I mean, it begins and ends with that, like you're talking about. He's a running quarterback. It's one thing to be a running quarterback, but your whole everything that you're doing has to be retooled and catered to that one guy. So like everyone else, I realize a lot of the NFL is going more to that style, like we were talking about Anthony Richardson earlier this week, and that's why Anthony Richardson has become popular because of that style of quarterback, and it's Rami, his agent sucks, and it's because he's his own agent. Apparently, he and his mom are the agent, and and I think that has to probably play into this as well. It's like, do you want to deal with Lamar Jackson and his mom rather than an actual? I can't think that helps him. But so I wouldn't, like if I look at my team right now with Dak Prescott, Dak has his issues. He's not a perfect quarterback, but I would still rather have him for what Dallas is trying to do than Lamar Jackson and have him, in the mix, because again, you've got to rework and cater everything around that one specific guy and his skill set. That's basically what John Harbaugh did when he decided he was going with Lamar Jackson. They retooled everything, and it's all built around Lamar Jackson. So I would not want that.
No, me neither. Just the injuries, the whole thing just scares the crap out of me. And he's asking for like the best contract that's out there. I mean, and he's asking for Deshaun Watson.
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing, is how much you've got to pay him. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot to sink into a guy that I'm not guaranteed he's going to be out there to make 17 starts a year, right? Yep. And, now, do I think giving Deshaun Jackson that kind of money was crazy? Yeah. Or Watson, excuse me, with the Browns, right?
Right. Deshaun Watson. Yep.
Craziness. Like, that's crazy that they gave him that kind of a contract, but he's a pocket passer, right? He's not going to have the injury problems that Lamar Jackson has. And so, yes, is he mobile and all? Yeah, of course he's mobile, but he's not going to be running the zone read and all of those different things. So, yeah, there's no way he's going to get that kind of money. There's no way.
Concur. All right, a couple questions, comments here at the end. Chi-Town wanted to know how good the Irish soccer team is. I did not actually watch the soccer team. I just saw them down there and kind of heard them.
I believe last year they made a bit of a run in the NCAAs, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm looking.
I think you're right.
For the info here. Here's the schedule. Let's see here. What did they do? They were okay. They weren't as good as I thought. They were 8-7-2 overall. No. And they lost their first game. Maybe it was the women that did a good job, because the men did not.
Yeah, they were. The women were better this week. As soon as I remembered. Yeah.
Okay, so I take it back. The men were not great. The women were much better. They were 17-3-3 were the women. So yeah, there you go. So
Decaf wants to know any news on Olivia Miles. There is not. It is all still kind of wait and see on Olivia Miles right now. That's pretty much all we know as they try to again, gearing up for Selection Sunday, and it's 3 days away now.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yep. I'm excited to see how they can do.
For sure. And then Jeff says, I've come up with a great comparison for you guys. You're the Channel 4 San Diego Ron Burgundy ND News Team. Sean's mic issues, Jesse's whiteboard, Vince's family drama. You bring it to us without the BS.
Thanks, Jeff. I think you
And
might have
we are
nailed
not
it there.
Marshall. Stay classy, Irish breakdown.
You guys might have nailed it there. Just saying. You might have nailed it.
I like that.
I do
like
too.
That. Romlock, man. Like, no, I'm sorry. Wrong one.
There we go.
Sean
Romlock's
is big
on
time
fire.
free to watch the soccer team, but refuses. Well, I was in the middle of trying to interview Notre Dame players. So
I love it.
it's like,
love it.
where should my attention be? It's like Vince barking at his kid off camera while
Yes,
the
it
show
was.
is going on. So
Yes, I was. Guilty as charged.
that's
Yep.
okay. You
Eh.
got to do what you got to do sometimes. It's like we'd all be better off if your kid was healthy right now.
Yes, because he'd be at track practice. Well, I guess he
That's
would
right.
be now, but yeah.
That's right.
That's right. We're talking about you.
All right. So we've got the rapid fire show tomorrow at 5:00.
Yes,
Looking
we do.
forward to that.
It's just you and me,
Yes,
right?
It is just you and me.
Okay. All
'Cause
right.
Jesse, it's supposed to be, I guess the snow hasn't quite started. It's supposed to start snowing within the hour
Yes, it is.
as we're doing this, and it's supposed to snow for about 16 hours. So he's driving over.
2 hour delay.
He'll be driving from Cleveland to South Bend while we're doing the show tomorrow.
Okay. Hey,
So-
maybe I'll get the elusive
Maybe his
snow day
girlfriend could
tomorrow.
drive and he could, like do the show from his phone or something.
Now you're talking. It's
Wouldn't
only
be
like
any worse
45
than
minutes to an hour.
Wouldn't be any worse than what Lucky Lefty tried a while back. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
No.
I think Jesse was doing the show with me at that point. But all right. Well, we will have plenty tomorrow. I can't guarantee Romluck any soccer talk or, Irish Chi-Town any soccer talk, but
Romlock, this is my first time I've ever seen you in here.
I think so
You need to
too.
come back, sir. I
Yeah,
assume
you've
it's a
got
sir.
you've got kind of a Derek vibe to you there.
I like it.
With yeah, that's right. Chi-Town says you should grow the Ron Burgundy stash.
My wife might have an issue with that, but I could do it. I could do
Have you
it.
ever
It'd take
tried?
a while.
Have you ever tried the mustache growth before?
In college, I grew a mustache. And I hate to say it, but I look like a child predator. Like it was not a good look for me at
All right.
all.
I could
It
see
was
that
not-
actually.
It was not a good look. I have
Yeah.
a picture. I'll have to show it to you sometime. There's a picture someplace in the unfinished part of the basement, in a box. And every once in a while I come across it and I remember why I don't have a mustache.
Yeah, my wife does not like the goatees. She thinks that
Yeah.
they make men look like perverts. So sorry to anyone who has a goatee, but it's my wife, not me.
It's very, very similar.
She made one of my best friends shave his off for our wedding because he was in our wedding. So
Oh, really?
it had to be shaved
Wow.
off because of the wedding photos. She didn't want it in the photos. So and he did
That's
it
funny.
to his credit.
Hey, you don't say no to the bride. Okay.
That's right. That's
Not
right.
how that works.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you joining us tonight. And again, we will be back tomorrow, 5:00 for the Friday Rapid Fire Show. So we will talk to you then on IB Nation Sports Talk.